How many people have we had tuning in recently?
Like 12. I think it's okay now. It's okay now.
Welcome to live chat.
It just needed a second.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like most of us.
Sometimes us and the computers need a minute.
We're so used to things happening instantly. Oh, we have a viewer. Yay.
That's exciting.
Especially since it's felt like a quiet day out here. I think everybody's celebrating. Oh, look, there's people. Anne's here and Tina's here.
I think, well, it was busy on the floor.
Was it?
Yeah, we had lots of lovely customers in today.
Oh.
Lots of them.
Buying their Valentine's treats.
Oh, yes. Valentine's treat for me, treat for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did that once. I was in the grocery store for, it wasn't Valentine's, and I saw, they have bouquets of flowers, and I grabbed one, I put it down, and the cashier's ringing them through, and she says, "Oh, these are so pretty." And I said, "Yeah, sometimes you just have to buy yourself flowers." The lady in line behind me laughed. She says, "Ain't that the truth?"
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, Barb.
Happy Valentine's Day.
It's
Happy Valentine's Day to all our lovely viewers out there. To our YouTubers and our Facebookers and
our in-store shoppers and our online shoppers. And
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Thank you.
So what you got on your list this morning or today, Chelsea?
Oh, well. Lots of stuff.
We tried to make a list of classes that were coming up, but Chelsea's pen is a left-handed pen, and I couldn't get it to write. So
it only works for lefties. I'm sorry, Barb.
Yeah, I know.
I was setting you up. Well, welcome to 2 for Tuesday at my sewing room.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting, and it's Valentine's Day. Well, I guess we have a list of classes. So tomorrow we're doing part 2 of Calla Lily.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start assembling. It's very exciting.
That's Hoop Sisters.
It sure is.
Yay.
It sure is. It's my first Hoop Sisters class. But we have another one coming up too.
When?
It's Navigator.
Oh, that's the big one.
Yeah. It could be big, or it could be medium.
Yeah.
Or it could be smaller. There are so many different sizes, which is excellent in the Navigator quilt. And I think Barb has an exciting class on Tuesday.
Yes, I have. Oh my goodness, what are we up to? Block 6 now, I think.
6
of Patchwork in Paradise. I've already spoken to one of our participants who had a brief look at the block and went, "Oh, I don't know about that one." But I will tell anybody who's listening who is part of that class, it is an easy block, and I love it. I love it. I just want to do many, many, many more of them.
Which block is it, Barb?
The Masked Singer.
Oh dear, that sounds terrifying.
No, it's not. It's
okay.
really,
okay.
Yeah.
I'll believe you.
And then on Wednesday we have our next long arm certification class. So if you've been thinking about learning to run the long arm or perhaps quilting your own quilts that way, there's still time to sign up for that one, and we have a lot of fun in the class, and it gets you past that, "Oh, this is a big machine, what do I do with it?"
It's so much more fun the bigger it is, though, Barb.
Yeah, I know.
I like the big sewing machine. It gets my quilts done so quick.
It can do, as one of my regular renters just discovered. She'd always done panto, and the last 2 or 3 quilts she's done freehand in about half the time. So she says, "You got a convert here."
The freehand, that's perfect.
Yeah. So, and then what's happening in March?
So happy.
You're so happy?
I am so happy.
Oh, good.
But we're also having an event called So Happy. It's going to be a really fun event.
I saw a picture. I forget where it went.
I don't see it.
Yeah. So tell the people what So Happy's all about.
So we have an OESD educator coming to teach us.
Oh.
And she's going to teach us all about stabilizers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have so much fun. We're making 6 projects, and our kits actually include all the stabilizer and thread we need to make those 6 projects.
That's really handy because sometimes that can be really confusing if you're new to things like embroidery. I know I've spoken to one of our customers who's actually considering signing up for that just so that she can have a taste of what it's like to do machine embroidery so that she knows whether she wants to buy an embroidery machine or not.
Oh, so she doesn't embroider now?
No, she doesn't.
Well, what
So
machine do you think she'd like to play on? Because I can set her up on any of our machines.
you better ask her that one.
They're
but-
fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that it? Is that it
That's-
for classes
That's
right now?
the end of my list, and now we're on the list of Barb.
My list. Well, today, Chelsea, I want to talk about old things.
Old things.
Yeah, like me. Old things.
You're not old, Barb. Come on.
We want to talk about specifically old quilts, vintage quilts, and what happens when they've seen a little bit too much love. You know that you're over visiting your son or daughter, and the grandson is, "Bye, Grandma, I'm off to university. And by the way, could you maybe fix this for me?" And he hands you the quilt you made him as a baby. And you look at it, and the binding is all shredded. And the one corner that he liked to sort of drool on when he went to sleep, the fabric is literally disintegrating. What do you do with it? The other one, and we've actually had the fortunate position to be in, to have people bring us vintage quilts for us to, I won't say fix, but what we have tried to do for people is just help the quilts last a little bit longer. So I thought it might be nice to share because, yeah, I have one here with me.
She sure does. She brought a beautiful
Here.
one. Who made this, Barb?
This was my mother's quilt. We'll pop
This
that up
is your
there.
mother's.
Yeah, my mother made this. So we're probably talking 60 years. If you look at the fabrics in it, and that's quite often how we date quilts, is by looking at the different fabrics.
Cool.
I'm guessing it was made sometime in the 50s. And the top of the quilt is actually in pretty good condition. There's very, very little wear on the fabrics. Obviously, it's hand quilted. And she used not quilt batting, but probably an old cotton, thin sort of a summery blanket here. But I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but you can see that what she used for backing was likely an old sheet, an old cotton sheet. So the backing is falling apart. And that's what happens with fabric that's been worn and used. So
And
it's
loved.
and loved. The body oils, much as you wash them, and the quilt is clean, the fabric shreds. It deteriorates. The acids in things, you can see it's falling apart. So I will get to what I'm going to do with this guy in a minute. There's my list.
Oh, yeah, I took your list.
That's okay. But first of all, we want to talk about what happens if you have that vintage quilt and maybe it's got a few holes in the top. Maybe it's got some spaces where the stitching has come out, or quite often what we see is an individual fabric, wherever it's used, is wearing thin. So how are you going to do? How are you going to conserve that quilt so that it can have a few more years of love? And the first thing that we do here when somebody brings us something like that is we ask them, what do you want to do with it afterwards? How are you going to use it, if you're going to use it at all? So maybe you want to continue cuddling in it. So that's going to be treated a little bit differently than if you just want to hang it on the wall and enjoy it. Or this one I know is going to go just on a quilt rack because it's going to be fairly fragile. So that balances some of the processes we're going to use on it. How old is the quilt? Where did it come from? Is it 60 years? Is it 160 years? So anything we talk about today, though, just be aware this is for your vintage quilts. When you're talking antique quilts that have some value behind them, it's probably better to contact a professional restorer to have them looked after. Okay? I mean, if you want to take it on yourself, that's up to you. But if the quilt has a certain value beyond sentimental value, at least consult a professional and see what they say about it. But let's say it's that grandson's quilt, or even, you know, maybe your mother gave you that box of, here's some of your grandma's stuff because she liked to sew too. And when you open it up, you find this gorgeous quilt. It's all soft and crinkly, but it's got some holes in some of the fabrics. So how do you start? Let's put the front camera
let's
on.
put the front camera on.
Sure.
I got
Let's
this,
put the
Barb.
front camera on. Yay.
There you go.
So how do you start with these things? And the first thing that I would start with is making sure it's clean. Because as you can see from this one, it's those residual body oils, sweat, whatever, dust in the air if it's been stored in a closet, just the heating and cooling of our houses over the seasons can do it. So first thing you want to do is clean it. And Retro Clean is designed specifically for vintage, age-stained textiles and brings them back to life. So it's a gentle cleaner. And what I would do with a quilt, fold it carefully, put it in the bathtub, run your warm water with your Retro Clean in the bathtub. Just let it sit there. Just let it sit. You don't want to jostle it around and destroy more of those fibers. Drain the water, rinse it a few times, and then there's a blog that I follow by a lady who works strictly with vintage linens. And what she will do after that, once it's well drained and she squished as much out of it, is she takes it outside and spreads it on the grass to dry in sunlight, because again, that helps with the bleaching out of any stains. So you've got it clean. Now the next thing you want to do is really examine it and find all of those little spots you want to repair. At that point, you have a choice. I'm going to pretend that this spot, let's go overhead here. Yay. I'm going to pretend that this block right here needs help. We'll say it's got a hole in it. Okay? So you could patch it. You could actually take that piece out, just unpick it. Pretty simple. Use it as a pattern. Find something that coordinates with the rest of the fabrics in your quilt. Cut yourself a little template. Fold. I would use freezer paper actually, because you could iron that to the back of your new fabric, press over your edges and pull your freezer paper out, and then just hand stitch it down to fill in the space and replace any of the quilting. That's a pretty straightforward one, especially if you've got either one or two small areas, nothing dramatic. If it's a quilt that you're going to do a lot of use, it's going back to the grandson. Obviously, if he's worn out the binding, you're just going to replace the binding. My grandson's quilt's like that. I haven't repossessed it yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
That'll be a good idea.
that would be an easy fix. The other thing you can do, quite often vintage quilts are made with fabrics other than a cotton. So let's say it's a nubblier fabric, maybe an upholstery fabric, because people did that, and it's got a patch worn in it. So you could darn it. And this is where I'd break out my DMC, my embroidery floss. And we have a wonderful book called Visible Mending. I didn't bring it back here because it only sort of relates, but it's going to tell you how to darn or mend that patch. And because the patch was, or the wear was created by love, we're not going to try and hide it. We're going to mend it so that it's secure and the quilt is usable. We're not going to worry about pretending it never happened because it was created by love.
Yeah, because someone loved it so much that they used it.
Yeah.
The best part about quilts is you get to use them.
Now, what if your quilt in general, what if the front of this quilt was in a similar condition to the back in a lot of places? What would I do with it then? Well, something else that you could do, let's say the dog got to it. We've had one of those too. Sometimes what you can do literally is deconstruct the quilt. You can take it apart or cut it apart and rescue the usable portions of it. So you're not worrying about the whole large quilt, but wouldn't it be nice if you had grandma's old quilt that had a lot of wear on 2/3 of it, and you were able to rescue a section and build that into a baby quilt for a great-grandchild?
That would be an excellent idea,
It
Barb.
just carries on down the generations. So I thought that was a great idea, and that was actually one that I had almost considered for this guy, but I think I'm going to try and rescue all of it.
Ooh. How are you going to do that?
Well, I'm going to reback it, actually. If this was a quilt that was kind of for rough and tumble, maybe it was a kid's quilt, not perhaps as old as this, and it's got a hole in it, you know. The little one was running through the yard, and the dog grabbed it and kind of tore a hole. You could applicate a patch over that quite easily. Quite easily. You could put a patch over, either fuse it down and stitch around it, or hand stitch it if that's what you want to do. It's like layering the generations. So don't be afraid that your patch, your fabric is different, or your stitching is different. This was made by one generation, and you're layering your generation's work on top of it. It's a continuation. Yeah. And then finally, if none of those things really appeal to you, you have a quilt that you love the look of it, but really there's nothing you can rescue about it. Quite often what they will do is recreate it. They'll literally replicate the pattern, replicate the fabrics as much as possible, and that can sometimes be the hardest part, is replicating the fabrics that are in a vintage quilt, and build a new quilt out of new fabrics that looks the same. How do you store your vintage quilts? If you're not going to display them, make sure they're folded carefully with acid-free paper, if you're using paper, or with some lightweight cotton, some cotton muslin between the folds, and don't put them in plastic. Leave them on the shelf.
To air?
Every 6 months, you take it out and refold it. What you don't want is a crease, a fold in your fabric that sits there for 6 years, because those fabrics are going to, the fibers will wear right on the fold. Yeah. I knew a really good quilter. Even the quilts, her grandkids were instructed forcefully never to fold the quilts that she had on her chairs and things. They were to be bunched up and piled. And any quilts she did fold, she would fold them as triangles, because, hey, most of our quilts are straight lines, right? So you don't want to fold on a seam line. And then every 6 months, go and refold it so that crease doesn't settle in.
Well, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about quilts.
Yep. Fabric is so cool. But what am I going to do with this? Well, as I say, the front is in good condition. It's mostly the back. And I hate to lose the texture of Mother's hand stitching, but unfortunately it's going to be what's going to happen. And so what I've got here is very nicely folded, is an extra wide, I believe. And this is our premium muslin. You can see how much whiter it is. This looked white in the sunlight.
Compared to this on the camera, yeah.
Yeah. So this is just a lightweight muslin like that. So I will put that completely over the back of the quilt, and then I will turn it to the front and redo it as a binding the way this was done. And I think instead of disrupting the hand stitching, there's a couple things I could do. I could go back in and hand stitch within the hand stitching, but that's a lot of work. So I'm kind of thinking, because the original quilt top was machine pieced and hand quilted, what I might do is go in and machine stitch, basically stitch in the ditch, just to hold the backing to the quilt. It's not going to interrupt the look or the feel of the original quilt.
It would stop your quilt back from being baggy.
From flapping around. So that's the plan.
And are you going to remove any stitching around the binding here, or just leave it intact and fold over it and just keep it there?
I thought about leaving it, but because of the thickness here, I think I will take this part, because this was the backing folded to the front. I think I will take this part off, trim it back a little bit here so that the new backing will not increase the thickness there too much. Give me something to stitch to. So
that's a really cool idea, Barb. I think my mom might have a quilt at home that might need some of this.
Well, and it's something that I know I'm interested in, and a couple of other people here. We have the skills. We have the skills. So if you have vintage quilts at home and you want to know what to do with them, or you would like someone to give you a hand with repairing them, bring them in. We'll be happy to talk to you about them, because they should live a little bit longer.
They should.
Yeah.
They're beautiful works of art.
Yeah. But it does show what happens with fabric over time, and it does show that if you're going to make an heirloom quilt, you're making a wedding quilt, or just something for a loved one, start with good fabric. And speaking of good fabric, Chelsea, what do we have behind us?
We have something beautiful.
I was looking at this and I thought, that would almost go.
It almost goes. I actually have a whole kit.
Oh, look at that.
It's a fabric we've shown on already on Facebook. It's called Happiness Blooms.
Put the top camera on. I want to see that kit beside this little piece of fabric. Look at that.
That would go excellent, Barb. Do you ever need to patch that piece?
If I ever need to patch that one.
Yeah, it's Happiness Blooms. And so we actually got the quilt kits in. And it makes a 58 by 70 quilt. It has, I believe, the top and the binding in here. So 58 by 70, top and binding all together. Pattern included.
Pattern included.
Yeah.
So all the instructions.
I actually have the pattern right here. It's called the Happiness Sampler. So I believe it's 4 different blocks. And you get to make this beautiful quilt.
Yeah. So it starts with a panel.
It does. It starts with...
Ta-da! Oh,
I have multiple panels.
Multiple colorways. So
it starts with this panel. Put it down like that. On this panel, we have a bunch of beautiful sayings all about home and family. Which is adorable. And it has 8 different sayings. And yeah, so you start with a panel and you cut it all up and get this beautiful quilt.
I was going to say, that's half your blocks done already.
That's half your blocks. Isn't that excellent? And then you just add a little bit, just a little border with looks like some half square triangles.
That's a really cute little.
I think, what's your favorite block in here?
Favorite block? I actually like the pre-printed ones. I think they're really nice.
They are beautiful.
I rather like that one.
I was thinking this one. Maybe we should put this on the close-up. See how close into this we can get. We'll bring that over here.
Yeah, here, use perhaps this one. You can move it right in because it's quite a soft colorway, so it doesn't always show up.
So this is Barb's favorite block.
Mm-hmm.
She just likes the little printed ones. And that's my favorite block. I like that one. I think it's just so cute. With the little check in there. It's really gorgeous. So that's the Happiness Balloons quilt kit.
And the complete line of fabrics. So
Complete
because you'll
fabric,
have the pattern,
to make it
you
again.
can always make it again.
Well,
yep.
And we had carry pre-cuts in this as well. I didn't bring them back here.
Because there's so much to carry.
But there's a jelly roll.
Yeah.
And a 5-inch square. And I think a 2.5 as well. There's a lot of goodies.
And this is the other.
Oh, we found the other one.
The other colorway.
Top.
This is kind of nice if you want a bolder look.
See,
kind of pretty.
I think I would pick this colorway over the lighter
the really
one.
pastel.
What do you think? What's your favorite?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you thinking lighter colorway, Barb?
I don't know.
We should find the same print. Okay, let's use that one.
Okay.
Together.
Oh, just make a giant quilt and use them both.
Ooh, you could do that.
There.
All right.
There.
So anyone viewing, cast your vote.
Mm-hmm.
The charcoal colored colorway or the cream. I'm curious.
See, this one I could really see as a quilt.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I look at those flowers and I just want to get my embroidery floss out and start stitching on them.
Do you think you'd put this as a wall hanging?
You certainly could, yeah. In fact,
It's gorgeous.
if you, let's say you made the quilt kit as it's pictured, you could pick up an extra panel.
Totally.
You could make those cute little blocks here with the little half square triangles like that as a wall hanging to coordinate with your quilt.
That's an excellent idea. And if you want the, both worlds, you could do this panel in your quilt and this panel on your wall.
Sure.
All backwards.
Sure.
Because we do have all the dark colors as well.
Yep.
That's a great idea, Barb. You tie it all in. I think it's so cute.
We just want to see flowers. This time of year we're going, just show me flowers.
Well, it's springtime, and it makes you happy when you see all the flowers.
I had that discussion with my son on the weekend, and he was saying things like, it's beautiful out. Yay! Winter's over. Summer's almost here. And then the next morning, of course, we're a little south of the city. I looked outside. We had like this much snow down in Okotoks, and I went, no, winter's not quite over yet. We're getting there. Nope. We're getting there. Don't rush things.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
We're in the home stretch now. We're getting there.
I think I'd be bored if I had to live in a place that didn't have seasons, though. I like the changing the seasons.
I met someone today. They came into our store, and they're from LA.
Oh. They sort of have seasons.
They sort of have seasons.
They have warm and hot.
Yes.
And hotter.
Yes. And I know they were telling me that they go to this place where it gets colder. I want to say, I can't remember where they went, but it has winter. But their winters are just cold and gray.
Oh, yeah.
And they said they like our winters better because it's sunny.
At least we have the sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
I thought that was really cute.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I had a lady pick up her quilt today. She was leaving tomorrow for a cruise.
What? That sounds wonderful. Well, maybe we should cruise on back to work, Barb.
Yes, I guess so.
I had to get you. I'm sorry. Well, thanks for joining us today, friends.
And if you have any questions about your old stuff, like vintage quilts, drop by, bring them by. We'd love to see them. They're different. They feel different. I don't know.
They're always so interesting.
Yeah, they are. They are, for sure.
Well,
That's it for today.
That's it for today.
We're happy
see you next-
everybody was here.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
It was fabulous. Thanks for